Orgoth is led by Kishtar, the Howling Silence. Her battle group includes a tyrant named Merc and a jackal named Lobo. She also has a Reaver commander named Hakal and a unit of Alkor Barragers, Gorkal, Tuluk, and Cog. Orgoth chose the command cards: Breakthrough, Hit and Run, Infiltration, Hold Faithful, and Put the Fires Out. Protectorate is led by Grand Exemplar Krios. His battle group includes a Vigilant named Rampart of the Righteous and a Repenter named Pyre. He also has Exemplar Warder Elias Gade, a Vassal Mechanic named Godwin Atwood, a Reclaimer Gatekeeper named Razak Ad Okar, and a unit of Exemplar Bastions, Victor Murdoch, Ansel Ellsworth, and Brill Ashburn. Protectorate chose the command cards: Breakthrough, Careful Reconnaissance, Old Faithful, Power Swell, and True Inspiration. Orgoth won the starting role and chose to go first. Special thanks to the Delaware Warmachine crew for sending us the challenge coin that we used for our first player marker. We played a variant called Scenic Steamroller, designed by Thomas and Dessa O'Neill. A link to the variant is in the description below. For terrain layout, we set up buildings on the right side of the table to represent the town of Var, and used nature-based terrain on the left side of the table to represent forests and hills on the outskirts of the town. Rolling a D3, 3 pieces of terrain were selected to be scored. The northwestern forest can be scored by warrior models. The wooden house and central forest can be scored by warjacks. The house represents the last holdout of the Varan priests, while the forests are where the citizens who survived the initial onslaught gathered to seek shelter. Orgoth was deployed across the center of their table edge. The Reaver commander was to the far left. The Barragers and the Jackal were in the center, with Kishtar and the Tyrant to the far right. Protectorate was deployed slightly offset to the left center. On the left was the Repenter, the Vigilant, and Krios, with the mechanic behind them. On the right was the Reclaimer, the Bastions, and Elias Gade advanced deployed slightly ahead of them. Reports of the Orgoth terrorizing towns further in from the coast worried Mikhail. The Grand Exemplar had held out hope that the Khadorans and the Signarans would be able to hold back the horrors until he could assemble a larger force. When word of the faithful in Var were under siege, Krios knew he could wait no longer. He rallied a small group of his most trusted warriors and warjacks, setting out to recon the area and save all those he could in the name of the Creator. Orgoth. Turn 1. Hakal raised his blade, calling out commands to the Alkor Barragers in his charge, before running through the northwestern forest, his very presence striking fear into the hearts of the Menites hiding among the trees, as he set his sights on the pine forest further up ahead. Following close behind, Gorkal made his way into the forest, though not as aptly as the Reaver commander. Cog and Tuluk took up position ahead of him, working their way closer to the central forest. Kishtar sent her Tyrant to secure the building where the local religious leaders cowered inside. She then enveloped Lobo with a protective aura and moved up behind Merc. Lobo was sent to secure the opposite side of the house in support of the Barragers. Protectorate. Turn 1. Krios blessed both Rampart and the Bastions. To his Vigilant he imparted a violent, aggressive fire. while he strengthened the resolve of the heavily armored knights. Before rushing towards the screams of terror coming from the forest.
I'll get him off! Help! Help!
Rampart and Pyre ran to the Grand Exemplar's side, with Godwin not far behind. Elias Gade took up position at the base of an abandoned guard tower. The bastions formed a perimeter around Gade while the Reclaimers stayed nearby, praying and stoking the holy fire of Menoth in support of the assembled warriors. Orgoth. Turn 2. Kishtar spread a portion of her unholy magics between her warjacks. And kept the protective fires raging around Lobo. She then commanded Merc to take up position at the front of the wooden house. With Krios in his sights, the tyrant let loose an explosion of death thundering out from his belcher. The blast detonated at the Grand Exemplar's feet, but Krios reinforced his power field to stave off the brunt of the damage. Both warjacks and the mechanic were caught in the blast, though only Godwin succumbed to the explosion. Krios' imperishable conviction emboldened him as the mechanic was slain. Razak captured Godwin's soul as his body was ravished in the blast. Driven by his bloodthirst, Lobo charged into the Exemplar water. Clawing at Gade to tear away his armor. The Jackal followed up the initial attack by slamming his mace into Elias. The blow nearly killed the knight, but Gade somehow managed to tough it out. The Reaver commander issued precise tactical instructions to the barrages before moving into the central forest, hoping to claim as many souls as possible before the Menites could save them. Gorkal moved to the edge of the tree line, while the rest of the unit advanced up to an oddly placed pillar of salt. From their new vantage point, the other barrages could see the Vigilant in the distance. Their cannons erupted Felgoth fires into the rampart. But the mighty Warjack braced for the impact as the explosions nearby sent nothing more than dirt and debris raining down onto his shield fists. The Gargashian warlord then moved up near a stone column and peered through the eyes of her tyrant. Catching sight of the Midnight Warcaster, Kistar urged Merc to belch forth another torrent of destruction. The blast landed short this time, but close enough to send a wave of fire into Krios, who once again reinforced his power field to avoid any further damage to his mortal being. Protectorate. Turn 2. The Grand Exemplar prayed Menoth's blessings over his warjacks and continued the blessings he'd bestowed upon Rampart and Ansel's bastions. Brill led the charge into Lobo. slashing into the Orgoth Jack with his consecrated halberd. Lobo deflected Ansel's attack, but as the Jackal was distracted, Victor plunged his blade deep into the vile Warjack's shoulder, ripping across to the other side and crippling both of his arms. Seeing Lobo staggering under the damage the Bastions had inflicted, Krios sent his Repenter barreling into the Jackal, slamming his Warflail down with devastating effect. As the Orgoth Jack slumped to the ground, Gage's righteous fury was directed to Merc. Next, Pyre raised his flamethrower and sent a wave of Menoth's fury bathing over the tyrant. Emboldened by the faithful around him, Elias Gage managed to stand, despite being critically injured. The exemplar warder raised both heavy crossbows with Merc in his sights, sending a pair of blessed arrows slamming into the heavy Orgoth Warjack. Razak moved closer to Rampart and used the essence of the Mechanic's soul to impart a glimpse of fate onto the Vigilant. Seeing the Reaver commander terrorizing the faithful huddled in the forest, Rampart ran forward, slamming both shield fists into Hakal, sending the Orgoth commander stumbling back into Tuluk. With the reconnaissance gained from the Vigilant's position, Krios moved into the forest, comforting those around him with his indomitable presence. Kishtar called on an ancient arcane rite to sustain Merc. And stoked the fires of hate raging inside the tyrant. The howling silence then sent a wave of chaotic fury coursing through the Orgoth, and wrapped Merc in a protective enchantment. With careful aim, Kishtar held Death Whisperer into the assembled exemplars, carving through Brill's neck before ricocheting into Gage, ending his suffering. As Elias died, Kishtar banished his soul to the abyss, robbing the reclaimer of his prize. The Swift Hunter then secured the priest's house and unleashed pandemonium across the battlefield. Hakal struggled to regain his footing and made way to the northwest forest. Calling out commands to the All-Corps once again, the commander worked his way to the middle of the forest, felling terrified citizens under his accursed blade. Cog made his way towards Krios and the bastions, with Tuluk and Gorkal surrounding him. Cog fired a round into Victor, catching both Brill and the Midnight Warcaster in the blast. Gorkal's shot landed short, being not much more than an annoyance to the Bastion. Sending her tyrant charging into Krios, Kistar cursed as the two bastions nearby took defensive strikes when Merc closed in. Both Victor and Brill slashed at the tyrant's right arm, severely crippling his Belcher's function. The heavy warjack wrenched at Krios with his massive claw. But the Grand Exemplar's faith held strong. The hunter gored at the Warcaster with his helmet's finned blade, adding extra effort to the attack. Once more, Krios reinforced his power field, though not enough to avoid any damage at all. Merc tried in vain to blast Krios point blank, but the damage to his cannon was too great to overcome. Driven by Kishtar to lash out with the last of his power, Merc clawed at the Protectorate Warcaster again, drawing blood in the process. Protectorate. Turn 3. The Grand Exemplar allowed the blessings on Rampart and the Bastions to wane, wanting to keep a full measure of Menoth's might on himself. Looking to end this fight once and for all to save those faithful who still remained, the Midnight Warcaster rallied his warjacks and knights with a resounding call to arms. Before driving the point of Justifier several times into the heart of the Orgoth tyrant. With the warjack destroyed, Krios turned his attention on Gorkal, painting the nearby trees red with the All-Corps' blood. Next, Krios sent Pyre rushing in to slam his warflail into Kishtar. Pinner fired a blast of flame, but missed as the warjack pulled his shot, not wanting to burn the house or the priest hiding inside it. With the Orgoth Warcaster staggered, Krios commanded his bastions to swarm the foul warlord. Victor gained a measure of revenge, as the blade of his consecrated halberd cut deep into Kishtar's flesh. Sending her soul back to her Felgoth masters, and winning the day for the creator of man.